China's crackdown is widening. The Duolingo language learner app no longer available for download on some app stores in China. It's off. This comes after Beijing issued rules barring curriculum-based tutoring for profit and foreign investment in the sector. This is just one of the crackdowns, one of the industry Beijing has tightened regulations on. China's #1 e-commerce company, Alibaba, is also warning of higher taxes as the government is no longer treating that company as a, quote, key software enterprise. Meanwhile, the CCP's antitrust regulator is planning to hit fine food delivery giant Meituan. The Wall Street Journal this morning is reporting the $1 billion fine is for what Beijing calls a dominant market position. Joining me right now is the Atlas Organization founder. He's the author of China's Vision of Victory, Jonathan Ward. And Jonathan was the first person to come on this program and tell us that the soft war between the U.S. and China will be played out in corporate America. And that is exactly what we're seeing. Jonathan, it is good to see you. You were right on, spot on what's going on in China. And I want to go through what Jamie Dimon told me about this in a moment. But first, assess what we're seeing here. China is cracking down on a number of industries. It is creating losses for these companies if they're publicly traded companies. U.S. investors have been buying these stocks. They've lost their money. What is the CCP doing?
Hi, Maria. Good to be here. Well, the CCP is asserting control over its tech sector. Anytime that something becomes this big in China, it presents an inherent challenge to the party's power. I mean, they worked through a very careful program of bringing entrepreneurs and private business, into alignment with the party's goals under Deng Xiaoping and afterwards. And now Xi Jinping is making sure that these things do not get out of control. So they've issued directives about having a private sector sort of a loyal, the private sector is loyal to the party. I mean, they've had party members on boards for quite a long time, but they also want to make sure that these things don't get too big and create a rival power center. And at the same time, they're incredibly useful tools to the party. I mean, this is how the party is going to do technology innovation, which is what it sees as one of the key elements, that it needs to catch up with the U.S. to create a more powerful military. So it's essentially trying to pull the whole thing together and make sure that it retains control. And yes, I mean, I've been telling people for a long, long time that these are bad stocks. They're dangerous. You're not, you don't know what you're getting into. And to see everybody lose their money on this, I mean, they should know now. I mean, they should understand now that the Chinese tech sector is quite a dangerous thing.
There is a lot. I wonder, I spoke with the chairman and CEO of J.P. Morgan, Jamie Dimon, this week, as you know, and I wonder, one question I should have asked him, will there be party officials embedded in J.P. Morgan, China? When they expand, they have the proper licenses to do so now. So I put the issues that we're talking about right to Jamie Dimon, and he's doing business with China and getting set to expand there. Here's what he said about all of these issues. Watch.
I am not as worried about China as everybody else. And remember, America can do things unilaterally. If we don't want to buy Huawei, we don't. If we don't want to do X, we don't. We don't want to buy some, and they can do the same thing. Countries have the right to do unilateral things, and my guess is we'll find a common ground. I'm not as worried about it as other people. America will still be the most prosperous nation on the planet. It'll be smaller than China, but still far more prosperous in 20 years.
Jonathan, your take on Jamie's answer there.
Well, he says something very important there, and I've watched the whole interview, so I think everybody should watch this tonight on your show on Wall Street. But he says that we're going to be smaller than China. And I think that that's what we need to understand is at the heart of this, that's really the game that we lose, and you can never fix that. If China becomes a larger economy than the United States, we will never change the strategic picture again. We will have an adversary that is able to deploy incredibly potent military power with a sort of potentially superior global economic spread. And J.P. Morgan's own analysis, public analysis shows China surpassing us in 2028. So this, or 2028, that's right. So in the very, very near future. So, when Jamie Dimon is out there saying that he's going to be in China, he's been in China for 30 years, this is part of their strategy, I mean, he should know better. I mean, this is really, bankrolling our primary enemy. That's what our bankers are doing now. I mean, Dimon's not stupid. He knows what the result is. If China surpasses the United States economically, I mean, we're already seeing the military balance deteriorate against us in the Pacific. You have a genocide going on in Xinjiang, you have a crackdown in Hong Kong, and China has global ambitions that are just getting started. And the real tough contest begins if they surpass us. So our bankers are facilitating that now, Maria, and that's the big problem. And it's ironic because the original J.P. Morgan, John Pierpont Morgan 100 years ago, was bringing European capital over, principally from London, to finance the rise of the United States, to build our railroads, to build our steel companies. I mean, the original Pierpont Morgan basically helped build America, a real patriot. And here you have American bankers financing the rise of our primary adversary. So I think there's really no excuse for that. The see no evil, hear no evil approach here is just, I mean, look at the actions. Look what they're actually doing. They're directly bankrolling our primary adversary and competitor. And this is one of Washington's most important problems that we have not yet focused on. I mean, it's really time to ensure that we're not doing this anymore. We will lose this contest because of the actions of America's financiers.
Let me underline that. Roger Robinson was here yesterday, and he said this: the greatest financial scandal in world history, the multi-trillion-dollar underwriting by a democracy of a totalitarian police state bent on its utter destruction, courtesy of greed-driven Wall Street firms and corrupt government regulators at the Treasury and the Securities and Exchange Commission. Why is it that the SEC and the Treasury have allowed Chinese companies to skirt the rules, Jonathan? Look, that's another issue that I think all these Wall Street bankers have to answer. You're a fiduciary. As a fiduciary, how are you allowing your clients, your investors, to invest in Chinese companies when we know they don't even have to adhere to our rules? We don't know that the earnings are even there. They might be fake, as we saw with Luckin, as we saw with so many other Chinese companies that plummeted in value when we recognized that they did not have the earnings that we thought they did.
Well, it's really two things. I mean, on one hand, you're throwing, your investors into a sort of the deep end of something that could absolutely blow up in your face. I mean, the money that was lost on Didi, Jamie Dimon's comments where he says that's life in the fast lane. I'm sure he's saying something less cavalier to the people who lost their money with him on Didi. But, more importantly, when we're financing China's strategic industries, the only way that they surpass us in 2028 is because we're providing the capital. They can't do this on their own. They can only do it with U.S. financing, and that's what's got to stop. So, the real analogy here is in the 1930s, our companies were very tied into Nazi Germany. I mean, we were over there, just the globalization of, world economics at the time. I mean, Thomas Watson received a medal from Hitler at a conference in Germany, where the entire sort of league of chambers of commerce was sort of promoting global trade. And we were directly, American corporations were directly involved in the industrialization of Nazi Germany. And only later, when they lost their factories, when they lost their assets, and they did, most of them wound up obviously on the right side of that and helped build the U.S. war effort. And that's important. I mean, we, became the arsenal of democracy. It was our corporations that ultimately helped us prevail in the war. But before that, they were all over there, just tied into one of the worst, probably the worst regime in history. And we're seeing that again. I mean, today it's on a much larger scale than it was then. And worst of all, it's the direct financing of the adversary. Yeah.
This totalitarian government must be better understood by business because we cannot have this enabling of these communists to take over the world. Jonathan, it's good to see you. We'll certainly keep a spotlight on this one, as we have for the last several years. Jonathan Ward joining us this morning. We'll see you soon, Jonathan.